so my name is Kinley Andrew. I use she, her pronouns. I am the coordinator in new student and family programs. And I'm super excited to be here today, welcoming Dr. Bing from the LGBTQ Resource Center here at Virginia Tech. And I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yay, thank you. As Kinley so wonderfully said, I'm Bing. I am the director of the LGBTQ plus Resource Center. I use she and they pronouns. You may use either or just choose one at your ease and convenience. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this. So I've prepared a little bit of slideshow to give an overview of what the resource is, what resources we offer, and then what kind of programs look like, and some interesting things that have changed on the Virginia Tech Blacksburg campus over the last 2 years. So I'm going to go ahead and hit, and we should be good. White screen. Beautiful. So this is the very beautiful logo. You don't have to care about this whatsoever. We are in fact the LGBTQ plus Resource Center. It is a mouthful. It is okay. I know a lot of students just call it the Gay Center or the Pride Center. Use it as you will. The Resource Center is, in fact, however, a physical space. So we have a little cafe set up. You can go and you can heat up lunch. There's an electric kettle. So if you're somebody who drinks a lot of tea or hot chocolate, we also have a community library that you can take and borrow from as much as you'd like. I always say that if you trauma bond with a book, meaning like you read it and you're just obsessed with it and you have to keep this copy, let me know and I will replace it. But if you don't tell me, we can never replace it and no one else can then trauma bond with that book later on. So always let me know if you want to keep the book that you've borrowed. I will take care of that. We also have a community closet, which folks are able to donate and take from as they feel comfortable doing so. In the community closet, we also offer free chest binders, which can be very financially burdensome for folks, but very dangerous if individuals do not have access to it as a resource. So usually what we'll see is ace bandages being used in the place of a proper chest binder. And what that does is that you are able to pull and pull and pull and pull and pull, and it never really says stop until you've ripped it. And at that point, a lot of danger can be done to your body. So we want to make sure that we're avoiding anything that could bruise or chip or puncture, or not puncture, but crack ribs, which could also lead to some internal damage as well. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. So if that's something you are interested in, reach out. We can absolutely hook you up, or you can just walk into the Resource Center itself, go in to the left, past the trans curtains. I mean that as in they make up the trans flag. Not that they themselves are trans, but they probably are, so it's fine too. And treat yourself. If your size is not available, just let me know. I will reorder those. We're currently in the process of reordering them and are waiting for those to arrive. We also have a little living room setup, which is a great time to go in and chill. If you're looking for more soft furniture than study furniture, we have that available. We have DVDs. A lot of folks will watch TV or play video games in the Resource Center. That is all available to you. So it is a physical space that we keep, and we want to make sure that folks feel like they can go and they can just breathe. We want to make sure that there's somewhere that you can feel like you will be respected and the identities you hold will be respected. And that is the LGBTQ plus Resource Center for a lot of folks. We also offer a program specifically in the Resource Center called Community Support Group. It meets bi-weekly on Mondays with Swati Prabhu from Hokie Wellness and Dr. Jess Westcott from Cook Counseling. That is an amazing time to talk about being at college, talk about being a queer kid in college, talk about being a queer kid, talk about the difficulties of having a roommate, of finding friends, of expressing yourself. If you're having some tumultuous relationships with your family, that can be a really great space to seek advice, to gain support, just to vent if you need to. But that is a wonderful resource that we always encourage folks to take advantage of. Then we go into our large annual programming, and we offer programs starting all the way in September through to May. And so Celebrate Bisexuality Day is our first program that we offer on our annual calendar. It is our ability to take stock of our community and look at our makeup, and also talk about the inner turmoil that exists. So the bisexual community makes up more than 50% of the queer community, but they also experience some of that most heightened amount of discrimination, oppression from both the heterosexual cis community and the trans homosexual community. Wow, I almost really forgot that word. Wouldn't that be funny? But it's one of these communities that often gets kind of pushed to the gray areas and pushed in the margins of an already marginalized community. And so we're able to talk about what bisexuality looks like, what bisexual experiences look like. And often we're doing so in a lens of racialized identity as well. So this past year we had Jen Deerenwater, who is a two-spirit native bisexual. The previous year, we had Amy Andre, who was a Black bisexual activist who worked with his works in government for healthcare. So it's a really great opportunity to take a look at that identity and how it functions. We move into October, which is LGBTQ History Month. This is just a month packed full of really good informational, educational, engaging events. We want to make sure that you are gaining some of the knowledge that you probably weren't in your primary school or your secondary school or in high school. And there's some classes that won't always include queer content. So we're wanting to make sure that you are understanding who Weibo was, or who Baird Rustin, or Marsha P. Johnson, or Sylvia Rivera, or some of these more contemporary activists such as Laverne Cox, or even Elliot Page. It's a great opportunity to learn about our roots, to learn about how those are connected to our present, and kind of make those connections. It is a great time. I usually say that this is more of like the interesting uncle of programming. He's got like a newspaper, he's maybe smoking a cigar or a pipe, and he's like, did you know? And you're like, no, I didn't. Why would I know that? It's a great time, but it's very, very interesting. And so if you're thinking, I just don't know enough, I would love to learn more, October is going to be the month for you. From October, we move into November. We do a Queer, Black, and Brown Veterans Day. So those are two communities, the queer, the trans, the Black and Brown veterans are those populations that aren't always included in a more traditional Veterans Day, thinking mostly of the ways in which we put forward cis, white, straight veterans as the image of who a veteran is. And particularly with Virginia Tech having a Corps of Cadets on campus, it's important for us to explore why folks may choose to join the armed forces, what those motivations are, what those experiences are, and even make sure that the armed forces are moving forward toward inclusion in all ways and shapes and forms. So we have been able to host a number of queer, Black, and brown veterans to talk about their experiences, why they joined, and what they hope to see from those people. Into November 20th, we go to Trans Day of Remembrance. This is a slightly more solemn event where we're able to talk about the anti-transgender violence that particularly affects women of color. It is an opportunity to acknowledge the individuals and lives that we've lost in the last year. And that can be very, very difficult for a number of folks, but it's also very important to remember that these are human beings. They're not just statistics. They have stories, they have lives. And the only way to end it is to acknowledge it and start to figure out how we can dismantle it. So we actually kind of end our fall semester large programs. Smaller programs tend to happen and pop up along the way, but this tends to be our last. So we kind of end the semester going, here's what we need to do. Let's go into the season, the holidays, talking about what we need to do as a society to better ourselves. And we're able to do that over the break as we feel comfortable doing so. We come back in the spring. We usually work with our Black Cultural Center doing a Black History Month event. We work with the Women's Center to do a Women History month event, but our large programming comes back at the end of March for Trans Day of Visibility. Originally we had started Trans Day of Remembrance as its own kind of entity and didn't really have this other piece. And what that did is kind of tell a story about what happens to trans folks, what does it mean to be a trans person in the world, and what does that narrative ultimately end with. So we were able to implement Trans Day as Visibility, and this is something that is nationally celebrated. It's not something that's unique to tech, but something that is able to kind of counterweight that narrative that we're telling on campus, the information that's being put out there. So we're able to host trans folks around the world and talk about like, what is it like being queer? What are some, or about being trans and queer, or being trans and Black, or trans and brown? Tell us what that experience is like. Tell us about what you love about it. Tell us what's been hard for you, and tell us how you've come on the other side of that. It's just a very, very cool event. The first one we ever did, we hosted Jordan Blisk, who's a former student of mine, and he said, one of the most beautiful things in which he was talking about his favorite thing about being trans is he felt like he was invited into the creation process. And it sticks with me every day. I think about it all the time, about how much more meaningful you must see yourself if you've understood that you were part of the creation. And that's just an amazing place to be in your life. And he's fairly young and he's going to do some really great things. So March 31st, Trans Day of Visibility. That leads us into Pride Week, which we just finished. This is what I always say is like the fun ant to the like like knowledgeable uncle. It's like she maybe drinks a little bit too much at a holiday event. She may take her wig off, but she's a solid good time and we all need them. So this year we brought in Sam Rosenthal from Roanoke College to talk about living queer history. We had Queer in Appalachia, where we hosted Chris Matthews, who is a Black lesbian Appalachian musician, to talk about activism through music and what the kind of messages she is able to spread in that. We brought in Embellish Hair Studio from Roanoke, which is a queer owned and operated hair studio, just 40 minutes down the road from the Blacksburg campus, to give free haircuts. And that was just rad. That was incredible. It's the first time we've done it. It's something we've been trying to do for 2 years now, and we're absolutely going to do it again. We also brought in a queer lawyer to assist with legal name change, and we're able to financially assist 3 different students being able to pay for filing fees. So some folks, that can be a burden, that can be something that keeps people in a place where they're not being addressed properly. And a lot of that comes from names on papers. And it feels so incredibly stupid, but there are institutions who will not refer to you as anything other than what's on a paper. So we're able to help them change that and move forward in their lives. And then we brought in Virginia Department of Health nurses to do free STI testing. That is one of those amazing things that we probably don't do enough. We don't destigmatize enough. And we don't invest in enough for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our community, to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of each other, and we're just holding each other accountable for the relationships that we have. So it's a really, really cool event. It is possibly the most exhausted I've ever felt, but it's also just, it's an amazing to see these students coming out in the spring after just a year of struggle, a year, and just being able to take care of themselves. It's an amazing time. And then our spring semester wraps up with Lavender Achievement Ceremony. So a lot of folks, when they, and I'll say like more the normative folks, get to go to graduation, they get to feel fully present, they get to feel fully acknowledged. For many in marginalized communities, that doesn't feel true. It feels like their Blackness or their brownness or their queerness or their transness doesn't feel like it's welcome in those spaces. So each of the cultural and community centers has a separate achievement ceremony, which we want you to be able to show up authentically. We want to celebrate the identities you hold while also celebrating the accomplishments that you've made. This year it will be, I believe it's May 11th, that is Thursday. There's going to be a lovely little ceremony. And then we go straight into a year 0 reunion / ex lapide alumni kind of celebration. So we're acknowledging that these folks are now a part of our alumni community. They are not alone. They have not been forgotten. They're just switching into a different role. And that'll be a very, very cool event. It's going to be the first one we've done in person since I've been here, thanks to COVID. So we're very much looking forward to that and seeing how that will look in the new year. The new year being currently still in COVID, just handling it slightly differently, I think. So very, very cool things. There's also some things that have been happening around campus that over the past 2 years that we have been able to work with and work on. Many of these are ongoing, or they've been kind of established and we're seeing how they go, and we're testing and seeing what needs to change. One of these things is our all gender restrooms on campus. We were able to create a GIS map. So each one of these little green dots is actually an all gender restroom that's available on the Blacksburg campus. We were looking at where they're located, how far away they are. There are some buildings, as you'll note, that do not have these. So we went back in and tried to figure out where is there space for them, where can we offer more, where is there the greatest need. Somebody who is far better with math and numbers than I am crunched them all, prioritized it as they needed, and we came up with, I think it's a 26 in total buildings that we are ongoing investigating and looking at where there's possibilities. That investigation has already been funded by the university, so it's something that is for sure happening. It's moving on forward. In the past academic year, we've added 4 to the campus, including our administrative building, Burris, which was just an amazing thing to think about, having an administrative building on a campus that does not have an all gender restroom. So we have been able to fix that, and we hope to move forward and fix many other spaces where the underlying message is we don't want you here and we're not going to make it easy for you to be here. Maybe that wasn't intentional, but that's what's hard. Another thing is we've been able to implement chosen name and pronouns into our banner system. So if you Google chosen name and pronouns Virginia Tech, you'll be able to find this webpage. There would be like a much easier way to do this if we were in person, but here you go. As you'll see, it talks about Virginia Tech understanding that these are important parts of identity. And then over here to the right, it says, how do I change my gender pronouns or chosen name in the university system? This is a step-by-step guide. We did put this tiny note here because no one really noticed it, and then they were emailing for a step-by-step guide. So this is going to be your best friend. It opens up a PDF that looks eventually somewhere in the neighborhood of this, but it will lead you through a number of screens that'll get you to this point where you can, it'll have what you originally registered in the university with, your name, your middle name, your last name, date of birth. But then right down here, you can implement or input a first name, a chosen first name in your pronouns. And you can also put in a gender identification, which is a very neat thing, and update it. What that will do is automatically populate into your email. So whatever name you put in as your chosen email or as your chosen name, that will show up in your email. It will also show up in many of your Canvas sites. So that is something to know, that if that's not something you're comfortable with everybody knowing, maybe reconsider. We don't want you to do anything that you're not ready for, but that is something that's available if filing or isn't the right, it's not the right time in your life for it, or filing for name changes just too taxing at the moment. This is one of those alternatives that we're able to offer. We're able to also offer the opportunity to put your chosen name on your Hokie passport. So that, we've been working with the university for a little bit now to talk about different designs and different ways this can be implemented. So you can see here on the left-hand side what the Hokie passport previously looked like. Had this cute little emblem, talked about don't putting hole punches in your student ID and don't physically damage it, which is great information. But now we're actually be able to put a chosen name on the front of your ID. That way you're able to show up more authentically and more comfortably. And then because the Hokie passport is used as a governmentally issued ID because we are a state institution, we have to have a disclaimer or some kind of note that this may not be the exact name that's going to show up in systems where you are legally registered. So you can have your legal name on the back, your chosen name on the front, and that gives you a little bit more flexibility and ability to navigate the university campus in the Blacksburg area more comfortably for some. Again, this may not be ideal for everybody, but this is an option. If that's something you're interested in, email me. My email will be later on in the slideshow. A very cool thing, and this happened over COVID summer of 2020, is we entirely revamped our Safe Zone program here at Virginia Tech. It is now called Virtual Safe Zone, capital V, capital T, because we love a branding opportunity, but also because it is entirely virtual. It is in total 15 weeks. It is done in 5-week increments. So you can see each of these logos stands for one of the 5-week trainings. The first 5 weeks goes over the queer umbrella, what it means to be queer, what it means to be out, what are the different pressures, what are the different experiences. The second 5 weeks covers trans identities, and that's more of like capital T trans than necessarily like the lower key transgender, male to female, female to male, binary that you usually see. We talk a lot more about ideas about gender, about stereotypes, about exceptionalism, about tokenism, about violence. So it's a really wonderful opportunity. And then that last one is a kind of a revolving door. So there's always going to be different electives available depending on when you sign up. At the moment, there are 2 in circulation. One is Queer US History, which goes from the early 1800s, probably right around the time of colonization, to I would say maybe the 80s, and it jumps into some of the more celebrity culture that we're in today. We very meaningfully pass by the 90s because that is a beautiful, beautiful amount of information and events and interesting pieces that deserves its own safe zone. So there will eventually be a 80s and 90s AIDS crisis safe zone that will come through. But there's also Black queer voices of the 20th century America right now. And we are currently in the process of developing an asexual and intersex virtual safe zone. So that is something that you can take as many electives as you want. We only ask that you take one. And then we give you a little placard that says, hey, I am working to make Virginia Tech a more welcoming and affirming space. So we very much are trying to move away from the ideas of you are a safe person, you can offer a safe space. Instead, we're hoping that you can just be more affirming and welcoming than maybe before 15 weeks of trainings. But this is a very cool opportunity. There are readings each week. There you do a little bit of writing, and then you meet once a week for a live discussion. And that's to help you kind of chew over what you're thinking, what you've read, and how you've seen that show up in your life over the last week, over the last 2 weeks, or the 3 weeks, what kind of conversations you've had, questions you have that you just wouldn't normally feel like there was an opportunity to talk about in writing. I'm very proud of this program. I think it's so cool, and we're seeing some really good margins as far as outcomes, what people go in with versus what people go out with. We also have something called the Queer Council. So many folks will say, how do I reach the queer community? How can I get involved? Or how can I get this information to you all? Generally, the Queer Council is a group of various LGBTQ or gender, sexual, romantic, minority student leaders. We're able to gather whenever we need to make sure that everybody has the support, love, and information that they need to be able to function in this place. So it includes members from True Colors, which is our trans student organization, VT Hero, which is our Corps of Cadets, QTPOC, or Queer and Trans People of Color, Students for Cultivating Change, which is our queer agriculture organization at Hokie Pride. Not featured on this, but are also a part of that is Space, our asexual and aromantic student organization, VT Fluid, which is a brand new organization for queer professional development, and QGPA, which is our queer grads, professionals, and allies. So the graduate queer group. And we're able to kind of put folks in a room and talk things over. So if there are initiatives you're wanting to launch, or you're wanting their input, or you want to be able to reach a larger audience that's particularly queer or trans, this is a great place to start. Again, you can reach them by reaching through me. This is very exciting. So starting in fall 2022, we will have a LGBTQ studies living learning community at Virginia Tech. This is for LGBTQ folks, this is for allies, this is for people interested in learning about queerness and transness in our world. It will be located in the top 2 floors of OSHAG. Present, it is about 50% returning students, and it will be 50% new students. As a part of the LLC, they have one required course, which is going to be an intro to queer studies. I looked at the syllabus the other day, and I can't tell you how jealous I was. It was such a cool syllabus. And I was like, oh, if I could just be a student again and experience all these things for the first time. And then there's going to be a number of co-curricular ways in which we're able to take what you're learning in the classroom or what you're experiencing in the world, and to deepen that, explore that more intimately. The search for the program director is ongoing, but very shortly we should have somebody who will be able to help us craft what that's going to look like. Very, very cool. As a part of this, there is a queer studies minor that's being developed. We have found that it is not always running on the timeline that we would like it to be, but it is being developed. There are going to be courses that are going to be popping up along the way, but the inevitable goal is a queer studies minor that folks can add to their studies. All of this work is done with one thing in mind, is to make Virginia Tech feel home to everybody. So Virginia Tech, and I love this about them, but the kind of slogan is "This is home." And we understand that because of the history that Virginia Tech has, the historical exclusion that has existed on the campus, the various policies that do not serve all communities, that it has not always felt this way. So our efforts are to make sure that Virginia Tech can be seamlessly accessed by a number of communities. And this includes our Black and Brown communities, this includes our disability community, as well as our queer community. We're wanting to make sure. So if there's anything that we can ever do to assist you in accessing the resources that you need or feeling more comfortable at Tech, please feel free to reach out. This is 100% a part of our job, and that is 100% the goal. So if you are curious, where is this wonderful place that exists? We are on the 2nd floor of Squire Student Center. We are in suite 227. It is a wonderful little place to go and hang out. It's very easy to make friends in there. Everybody's pretty chatty. You can also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at LGBTQATVT. You can find all of the events that we do on our Instagram. We are constantly posting on that, sharing as much information as possible. You can email me directly, Dr. Bing, to set up a meeting where we can chat. You can try and drop by my office. I am a team of one, so I am often all across campus. And so it is always easier to give me a heads up, and I can try and be where you need me to be. We also have a wonderful newsletter, and I say that because I make it, and it would be weird if I was like, it's a horrible newsletter, don't utilize it. We have a wonderful newsletter that I make, and I send out once a week. It is all of the queer events that are happening on campus that I have been made aware of, as well as some really cool events for our other marginalized communities that we want to make sure are getting in front of you, that you have the ability to say yes or no, I would like more of this in my life. If you use the QR code, it'll take you straight to the newsletter. The other QR code is for our Instagram. But those are wonderful places to get a hold of us, to see what's happening, to see how you can get involved. The world is your oyster at this point, but there's tons of options. that is the LGBTQ plus Resource Center in a nutshell. We're going to always be continuing to grow and expand the services we're able to offer, the various elements that we're a part of, and hopefully one day our team will grow too, to be able to support that. But it is just a very, very cool thing to be able to wake up and feel that you're doing some really good work for some awesome people.
Thank you so much, Bing. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we end the webinar?
We're always looking for more people to collaborate. I guess the two things I would say is if you want to do queer things and you don't know how to do queer things, reach out. We're always looking for people to work with. That includes students. If you're like, I want to do queer things and I don't know how, help us put on an event. We'll utilize you. And for other folks, it's think about who you're bringing. They may just be queer and you don't know it. And that's always a great thing to be like, hey, we already have this in the works. You don't have to do anything. If you are part of a student organization and you're bringing a speaker, Google their name and then put LGBTQ next to it. See if these are queer folks that you just didn't know were queer. Not everybody is a spokesperson. And that gives us an ability to utilize what you're doing and what your organization's doing or what your department is doing and really blast it out to the entire campus.
Thank you so much for sharing. I always love hearing about what y'all are up to. I say y'all, you.
It's an inclusive term.
Yeah, very much so. And the South, y'all sometimes is singular, so I think
it is just like the they.
Right, exactly. That is very true. Good point. All right, well, thank you so much.